The unexpected meeting. On a bright and colorful alien planet, the sky was filled with strange shades of purple and green. The air buzzed with energy, and the landscape was dotted with vibrant plants that glowed softly. This was Zora's home, a world where her people, the Zorethians, trained to be fierce warriors. They had always been told that humans were weak and cowardly, but today would change everything. Zora, a tall and strong Zorethian warrior, stood at the edge of a rocky cliff. She peered into the valley below, where she had heard rumors of human soldiers invading their territory. Zora's heart raced with excitement and anger. She had trained her entire life to protect her people, and today she would show her strength. Clenching her fists, she prepared to fight any human who dared to cross her path. Suddenly, a noise broke the silence. Zora turned sharply to see a figure emerging from the thick bushes, a human. Her breath caught in her throat. This human was unlike any she had imagined. He was tall with short, messy hair and wore a simple but sturdy uniform. His name was Jake, and he looked just as surprised to see her. Jake had been sent on a scouting mission, unaware of the Zorethian territory he was entering. When he spotted Zora, he froze, his heart pounding in his chest. He had heard tales of the alien warriors, and they were not good. But here stood Zora, looking fierce yet oddly beautiful. Instead of running or raising his weapon, Jake took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Stay back," Zora shouted, her voice echoing off the rocks. She raised her weapon, ready to defend herself. Jake held his hands up in a gesture of peace. "I don't want to fight. I just want to talk." Zora blinked in disbelief. She had never met a human who dared to approach her without fear. Most would have run at the first sight of a Zorethian warrior. Intrigued, she lowered her weapon slightly but kept her guard up. "Why are you here?" Zora asked. Her eyes narrowed. She studied Jake closely, trying to understand what he was thinking. "I was sent to gather information. I didn't mean to invade your land," Jake replied, his voice steady. "I just wanted to learn about your people." Zora couldn't believe what she was hearing. Was this human really interested in understanding her kind? Her mind raced with questions. "You're not afraid?" she asked, surprised. Jake shook his head. "I've always believed that there is more to your people than what we've been told. I want to know the truth." Zora felt a strange sensation in her chest. This human was different. Maybe he was brave, or maybe he was just foolish. She couldn't decide. But as they stood there, a connection began to form between them, a bond that neither of them had expected. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant colors, Zora and Jake found themselves caught in an unusual moment. For the first time, they were not enemies, but two beings from different worlds, sharing a moment of understanding. Zora felt a spark of curiosity about Jake, and she realized that this meeting might change everything. The unexpected encounter left both Zora and Jake wondering what would come next. They stood at the edge of the cliff, two warriors from different worlds, both ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Tension in the air. As the last rays of sunlight faded, Zora and Jake stood facing each other, the tension in the air thick enough to cut. Zora's heart raced as she tried to process what was happening. This human, who had boldly approached her, was not what she expected. Yet, her training told her to remain cautious. "Why should I trust you?" Zora asked, her voice steady but low. She had learned to be wary of humans, who were often seen as enemies in her world. "You could be lying to me." Jake took a step back, hands still raised to show he meant no harm. "I'm not lying. I want to understand your people, not fight you. I promise." Zora's bright green eyes narrowed as she studied him. She noticed the way his brow furrowed with sincerity and the strength in his stance. He seemed genuine, but doubts clouded her mind. Could a human truly be so different? "You humans have always wanted to conquer us," Zora continued, her voice sharper now. "Why should I believe you now?" Jake felt the weight of her words. He understood the history of conflict between their species. "I know about the war. I've seen the destruction it has caused. But I want to change that. I want to help bring peace." Zara scoffed, crossing her arms. "Peace? You think words will change years of fighting? You are just a soldier, a pawn in your leader's game." Jake felt frustration bubbling inside him. "Maybe I am, but I want to be more than that. I can't change the past, but I can try to make a difference in the future. We can work together." Zara's mind raced with thoughts. She had always been taught to hate humans. They were weak, deceitful, and nothing like her kind. Yet here was Jake, standing firm, refusing to back down. A small part of her wanted to believe him. Just then, a rustling noise came from the bushes behind Jake. Both Zara and Jake spun around, ready for a fight. Zara's instincts kicked in. She raised her weapon, ready to protect herself and the strange human who stood beside her. Emerging from the shadows was a group of Zorathian soldiers, their eyes wide with surprise at the sight of their commander standing next to a human. Zara's heart sank as she recognized their leader, Kiran, a fierce warrior who had always been loyal to her. "Commander Zara," Kiran shouted, rushing forward. "What is going on here?" Zara's mind raced. She needed to explain, but how could she tell them she was talking to a human? "It's not what it looks like," she called out, trying to keep her voice calm. "This human means no harm." Kiran's eyes darted between Zara and Jake, suspicion etched on his face. "You are speaking to a human? Do you know how dangerous that is?" Jake took a step forward, trying to defuse the situation. "I'm here to talk, not to fight. I want to help." Kiran's expression hardened. "We cannot trust him. He could be a spy sent to gather information." Zara felt a surge of anger at Kiran's words. "You don't understand. He's not like the others. He wants peace." The soldiers exchanged glances, uncertain. The air was thick with tension, each side waiting for the other to make a move. Zara stood between them, her heart pounding. "Enough," Zara finally shouted, her voice strong and commanding. "We will not fight today. I will decide what happens here." The soldiers hesitated, their loyalty to Zara evident, but Kiran's mistrust loomed large. The standoff left everyone on edge, a fragile peace hanging by a thread. As the night deepened around them, Zara and Jake both knew they had to find a way to bridge the gap between their worlds, or risk losing everything they had just begun to build. Discovering each other. The night deepened over the alien landscape, stars twinkling brightly in the dark sky. Zara stood between Jake and her soldiers, her heart racing as she felt the weight of their gazes on her. The tension was thick, but she sensed something more important was at stake. She needed to understand Jake better, not just for herself but for her people. "Let's move to a safer place," Zara finally said, her voice steady. She gestured for her soldiers to follow her. They had a hidden cave nearby, a perfect place for a quiet discussion away from prying eyes. As they walked, Zara felt Jake's presence beside her. He moved with purpose, but she could sense his nervousness. What was it about this human that made her feel so conflicted? They reached the cave, its entrance dark and cool, and Zara turned to face Jake. Inside, the cave was dimly lit by bioluminescent plants that glowed softly, casting a serene light over the rough walls. Zara motioned for Jake to sit on a rock, while she perched on another across from him. The soldiers stood guard at the entrance, still watching with suspicion. "Now tell me why you really came here," Zara said, her tone firm but curious. "What do you want from us?" Jake took a deep breath. "I want to know the truth about your people. For too long, we've been told you are just monsters, that you want to destroy us. But I've seen so much suffering on both sides. I believe we can find a way to coexist." Zara listened carefully. His words were different from what she had expected. "You think it's that easy? My people have lost many lives because of humans. Trust is hard to earn." "I understand," Jake replied, his voice sincere. "But I'm willing to learn. I want to understand your culture, your traditions. Maybe if we talk more, We can find common ground. Zora looked at him closely, searching for any sign of deceit. What do you know about us? Jake's eyes lit up. I've read about Zorathians. You are known for your strength and bravery. You have a rich culture, filled with stories of great warriors. I want to know what makes you proud. Zora felt a spark of pride at his words. We value honor and loyalty above all. Our warriors fight not just for our land, but for our families and our future. Jake nodded. That's similar to us. We fight for our families too. But our leaders have failed us, leading us into war instead of peace. A silence fell between them, each lost in thought. Zora couldn't shake the feeling that Jake was different. She felt drawn to his honesty, and it scared her. You are not like the others, are you? She asked, her voice softer now. Jake shook his head. No, I'm not. I want to be better, for myself, and for our people. As they spoke, the distance between them began to shrink. Zora found herself sharing more about her life, her training, and the struggles of her people. Jake listened intently, asking questions and showing genuine interest. What about you? Zora finally asked, her curiosity piqued. What is life like for you on Earth? Jake smiled, a hint of sadness in his eyes. It's complicated. We live in cities filled with noise and people, but there's often a feeling of loneliness. Many don't understand the true cost of the war. Zora felt a pang of sympathy. We are not so different then. Both of our worlds are suffering. As the conversation continued, Zora realized that she was starting to trust Jake. It felt strange, but she couldn't deny the connection forming between them. They talked late into the night, sharing stories and dreams, both discovering the layers that made them who they were. In that cave, under the glow of the bioluminescent plants, Zora and Jake began to break down the walls built by years of hatred and misunderstanding. With each shared story, they opened a door to a future where perhaps, just perhaps, humans and Zorathians could find a way to live together in peace, forced to work together. The night passed slowly in the cave as Zora and Jake continued to share stories. Just as they were beginning to feel a sense of camaraderie, a sudden loud noise shattered the calm. The ground trembled beneath them, and a sense of urgency filled the air. Zora's eyes widened in alarm. What was that? She asked, her voice sharp with concern. Jake sprang to his feet. It sounded like an explosion. We need to check it out. Without waiting for a response, Zora rushed toward the cave entrance, her heart pounding. Jake followed closely behind her. As they stepped outside, they were met with chaos. A thick cloud of smoke rose in the distance, and shouts echoed across the valley. We have to go, Zora shouted, her warrior instincts kicking in. She turned to her soldiers, who had been waiting anxiously. We're under attack. Move out. Kieran, still skeptical about Jake, glared at him. What are you doing here, human? You should go back. Jake stood his ground, determination in his eyes. No, I want to help. You can't fight this alone. Zora nodded, surprised by his bravery. We need all the help we can get. If you want to fight, then fight. As they ran toward the source of the noise, Zora quickly organized her soldiers. Kieran, take the left flank. I'll lead the right. Jake, stay close to me. Jake felt a rush of adrenaline as he joined Zora. The fear in the air was palpable, but so was the sense of purpose. He had never fought in a real battle before, but he knew he had to prove himself. They approached a clearing where a group of hostile aliens, unlike any Zora had seen before, were wreaking havoc. Those must be the Ravagers, Zora said, her voice low. They're known for their brutality. Jake swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the moment. What's the plan? Zora's eyes sparkled with determination. We'll create a distraction. If we can split their forces, we have a chance to take them down. Got it, Jake replied, his heart racing. He looked at the soldiers around them, all ready to fight. On my mark, we charge. Zora counted down, and when she shouted now, They sprang into action. Zara led the charge, her weapon drawn, while Jake followed closely, trying to match her fierce spirit. They shouted war cries to intimidate the Ravagers. The battle erupted around them. Zara fought with incredible skill, moving gracefully and powerfully as she struck down the nearest enemy. Jake, though inexperienced, did his best to keep up. He remembered the lessons he had learned from watching soldiers train on Earth. He picked up a weapon from a fallen Ravager and joined the fray. As they fought, Zara noticed Jake's bravery. He was not just hiding behind her. He was standing his ground, facing danger head-on. With every blow, they began to trust each other more. When Jake got cornered by two Ravagers, Zara rushed to his side, slashing at one enemy and giving Jake the chance to take out the other. "Nice move," Jake shouted, adrenaline pumping through his veins. "You're not too bad yourself," Zara replied, grinning despite the chaos. They continued to fight together, their movements becoming synchronized as they anticipated each other's actions. Slowly, they began to turn the tide of the battle. Just as victory seemed close, a loud roar echoed through the clearing. A massive Ravager, larger and more terrifying than the others, emerged from the shadows, swinging a heavy club. Zara felt a chill run down her spine. "This one is mine," she declared, stepping forward with determination. "Wait," Jake called, but Zara was already charging. The moment felt tense, and Jake knew he couldn't let her face this monster alone. He raced after her, ready to help. Together, they fought against the massive Ravager, combining their strengths. Zara's agility and Jake's newfound courage proved to be a powerful combination. With teamwork and determination, they could face any challenge together. In that moment, they truly became allies, fighting not just for their people but for each other, sharing cultures. After the fierce battle against the Ravagers, Zara and Jake stood in the clearing, catching their breath. The ground was littered with the remnants of their fight, but the air was filled with a new sense of hope. They had fought side by side, proving that humans and Zorithians could work together. Zara wiped the sweat from her brow and looked at Jake. "We did it," she said, a proud smile spreading across her face. "You fought well today." Jake grinned back, still feeling the adrenaline rush. "Thanks. I couldn't have done it without you. Your training really paid off." As they began to gather the wounded and assess the damage, Zara realized how much she wanted Jake to know more about her culture. She had shared some of her life in the cave, but there was so much more to tell. "Jake," she said, "after we finish here, would you like to see more of my world?" Jake's eyes lit up with excitement. "Really? I'd love that. I want to learn everything about the Zorithians." Once the battle was over, Zara led Jake back to her village, a vibrant place filled with tall structures made of shimmering materials that reflected the colors of the sky. The villagers greeted them with cheers, grateful for their bravery. Zara felt a surge of pride as she introduced Jake to her people. "This is Jake, my ally," she announced. "He fought with us today." The villagers looked at Jake with a mix of curiosity and wariness, but Zara stood confidently beside him. She knew that Jake's bravery would help him win their trust. As they walked through the village, Zara pointed out different areas. "Over there is the training ground where we prepare for battle," she said, gesturing to a large open space where young Zorithians practiced their skills. "And this is the Hall of Honor, where we remember our great warriors." Jake watched in awe, taking in the beauty of the village and the rich traditions of Zora's people. "It's incredible," he said. "Everything is so different from Earth. Your people have a strong spirit." Zara smiled at his compliment. "We value strength and honor, but we also value storytelling. Let me show you." She led him to a central fire pit where the villagers gathered in the evenings. Tonight was a special night. They would tell stories of past heroes. Zara explained, "This is where we share our history, our victories, and our lessons." As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the village, Zara and Jake joined the circle of villagers. And Elder Zorethian, his voice deep and rich, began to tell tales of their ancestors, heroes who had fought for peace and justice. Zara translated some of the stories for Jake, making sure he understood the significance behind each one. Jake was captivated. "These stories are amazing. They remind me of our myths back on Earth," he said, a smile on his face. "We have legends about bravery and sacrifice too." As the night wore on, Zara shared her favorite story about a legendary warrior named Thelos, who united different clans to stand against a great threat. Jake listened intently, hanging on her every word. When it was his turn to share, he told them about Earth's heroes, people who fought for freedom and justice in their own way. As they shared their cultures, a bond began to form not just between Zara and Jake, but also between their peoples. Laughter and understanding filled the air, breaking down the barriers that had separated them for so long. As the fire crackled and the stars twinkled above, Zara felt a sense of belonging. She looked at Jake, who was now surrounded by her people, laughing and sharing stories. It was a moment of unity, a glimpse of the future they could build together. In that circle of light, cultures intertwined, and they all understood something profound. Despite their differences, they were stronger together. This night marked the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with hope, friendship, and the promise of a brighter future for both Zorathians and humans. A shocking betrayal. The days that followed the battle against the Ravagers were filled with hope and cooperation. Zara and Jake worked together, forging a new path between their two peoples. They shared stories, traditions, and laughter, creating a bond that grew stronger each day. The village welcomed Jake, seeing him not just as a human, but as an ally and friend. However, not everyone in the Zorathian village was happy about this alliance. Kiran, the warrior who had always been loyal to Zara, watched from the shadows, his face twisted with jealousy and anger. He could not accept the idea of a human being trusted so deeply by Zara. To him, it was a betrayal of everything they had fought for. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, Zara and Jake sat by the fire, discussing plans for future training sessions. Zara was animated, her eyes sparkling with excitement as she spoke about how the humans and Zorathians could learn from each other. "This could be the start of a new era," Jake said, his voice filled with hope. "Imagine how strong we'll be if we combine our skills." Just then, Kiran stepped into the circle of light, his expression dark. "What are you doing here, Jake?" he demanded, glaring at the human. "Don't you have your own people to worry about?" Zara stood up, her voice firm. "Kiran, we're working together. This is important for both our peoples." Kiran scoffed, crossing his arms. "Important? You trust this human too easily. He could be leading us to our doom." Jake felt a wave of anger rise within him. "I fought for you, for your people. I am not your enemy." "Enough," Zara interjected, her voice loud and commanding. "We are not enemies. We are allies. We have to believe in each other." Kiran stepped closer, his voice lowering to a whisper, filled with contempt. "But you don't see the truth, Zara. There are whispers in the village. Some of our people think you're betraying us. They think you're putting us in danger by trusting him." Zara's heart sank at his words. "Whispers. This is not the time for doubt. We have to stand together." But Kiran was not finished. "I will not let you put our people at risk. If you refuse to see reason, then I will take matters into my own hands." Before Zara could respond, Kiran turned sharply and stormed away, leaving a chill in the air. Jake looked at Zara, concern written across his face. "What do we do now?" Zara felt a knot form in her stomach. "We have to show them that we can work together. We need to prove Kiran wrong." That night, as the village prepared for a celebration to mark their new alliance, Zara and Jake worked tirelessly, setting up decorations and organizing activities. They wanted to show the villagers how united they had become. But just as the festivities began, a sudden chaos erupted. A group of ravagers, led by a familiar face, appeared at the edge of the village. It was Kiran, standing among them with a smirk on his face. He had betrayed them, allying himself with the very enemies they had fought against. "Zara, Jake," Kiran shouted, his voice dripping with malice. "You thought you could trust a human. Look where it has brought you." Zara's heart raced with disbelief. "Kiran, why? You were one of us." "I was, until you chose this human over your own people," he spat. "Now, let's see how strong your alliance really is." With a wave of his hand, Kiran signaled the ravagers to attack. Panic spread through the village as the two sides clashed. Zara grabbed her weapon, her heart pounding. She couldn't believe the betrayal from someone she had trusted. "Jake, we need to defend the village," she shouted, rallying her people. Jake nodded, his face determined. "We'll fight together. We can't let them destroy what we've built." As the battle raged on, Zara felt the weight of Kiran's betrayal pressing down on her. She had to protect her people and her new alliance with Jake. In that moment, she understood that trust, once broken, could have dire consequences. But she also realized that together, they could overcome anything, even the most shocking betrayal. The final battle. The village was engulfed in chaos as the ravagers stormed in, their fierce battle cries echoing through the air. Zara's heart raced as she stood shoulder to shoulder with Jake, her trust in him stronger than ever. They had fought together before, and now they would do it again, facing the greatest threat to their newfound alliance. "Kiran has gone too far," Zara said, her eyes blazing with determination. "We must stop him and protect the village." Jake nodded, gripping his weapon tightly. "Let's show them what we can do together. For your people, and for ours." As they charged into battle, Zara could feel the energy of her warriors behind her, rallying together to defend their home. The sight of the ravagers, fueled by Kiran's betrayal, only strengthened her resolve. She would not let her people fall to their enemies or to a traitor. The clash of weapons rang out as the two sides collided. Zara moved like a shadow, her training taking over as she struck down the first ravager in her path. She felt a rush of adrenaline, knowing that Jake was right beside her. They fought as a team, instinctively knowing when to cover each other's backs. "Zara, watch out," Jake shouted suddenly, pointing to a ravager charging toward her. She spun around just in time, dodging the blow and counterattacking. With a swift move, she disarmed her opponent and sent him crashing to the ground. "Nice catch," Zara called, a grin breaking through the tension. But the battle was far from over. In the distance, Zara spotted Kiran directing the ravagers, his eyes wild with anger. He seemed to revel in the chaos, shouting commands and egging on his new allies. She felt a surge of fury at his betrayal and the pain he had caused. "Jake, we have to get to Kiran," Zara shouted, determination burning in her chest. "Let's go," Jake replied, and together they'd fought their way through the chaos, cutting down any ravagers that blocked their path. As they approached Kiran, they saw that he was facing off against several of Zara's warriors, laughing maniacally as he struck them down one by one. The sight fueled Zara's anger, and she sprinted forward, Jake right behind her. "Kiran," Zara yelled, her voice cutting through the noise of battle. "This ends now." Kiran turned, his eyes narrowing as he spotted Zara and Jake. "You think you can defeat me?" he taunted. "You're nothing without your own people." Zara felt her heart race, but she stood firm. "I am nothing without my allies. You have betrayed us all." With a roar, Kiran charged at them, his weapon raised high. Zara and Jake moved in sync, flanking him from both sides. The clash was fierce, and Kiran fought with a ferocity born of desperation. But Zara and Jake were stronger together. Zara struck first, her blade slicing through the air as she aimed for Kiran's weapon. Jake followed up with a powerful blow, striking Kiran's side and pushing him back. For a moment, it seemed like they might gain the upper hand. But Kiran was relentless, using every ounce of his strength to fight back. He swung wildly, and for a brief second, Zara stumbled. Kiran seized the opportunity, swinging his weapon towards her, but Jake stepped in, taking the blow meant for her. "Jake!" Zara shouted, panic filling her voice. She watched in horror as he fell to the ground, clutching his side. "Get him, Zara," Jake urged, his voice strained but filled with determination. "You can't let him win." Fueled by rage and fear, Zara found her strength. With a roar, she charged at Kiran, her movements precise and fierce. She struck with everything she had, finally disarming him and sending his weapon flying. Kiran fell to his knees, his expression shifting from anger to disbelief. "This isn't over," he spat, but Zara stood over him, breathing heavily. "Yes, it is," she declared, her voice steady. "You have betrayed your people. We will not let you destroy what we've built together." With that, Zara raised her weapon, signaling the end of the fight. The remaining Ravagers, witnessing their leader's defeat, began to flee. Cheers erupted from the Zorathians as they celebrated their hard-fought victory. As Zara turned to Jake, who lay on the ground, she felt a rush of fear. "Jake, stay with me." Jake smiled weakly, his face pale but filled with pride. "We did it, Zara. We proved that we can stand together." With that, Zara knew they had won more than just a battle. They had forged a bond that could never be broken, one that would lead their people to a brighter future. After the battle, the sun rose slowly over the village, casting a warm golden light on the aftermath of the battle. Zara stood at the edge of the village, her heart heavy with mixed emotions. The night had been long and fierce, filled with chaos and loss. But now, the air felt different, as if hope was trying to break through the pain. Zara watched as her fellow Zorathians began to gather the fallen, both friends and foes. There was a somber mood, but also a spirit of resilience. They had faced betrayal and danger, yet they had triumphed together. Zara felt a deep sense of pride in her people. They had fought hard and shown incredible courage. As she turned, she spotted Jake being helped by a few Zorathian healers. His injury was serious but not life-threatening, and they were working to bandage his side. Zara rushed over, worry etched on her face. "Jake, are you okay?" Jake looked up at her, a weak smile spreading across his face. "I'll be fine, just a scratch," he replied, though the pallor of his skin told a different story. "You were amazing out there, Zara. I couldn't have done it without you." Zara knelt beside him, relief washing over her. "You were brave, Jake. You saved me when it mattered most. I owe you my life." He chuckled lightly, wincing from the pain. "We're a team, remember? We're stronger together." Zara nodded, knowing he was right. They had fought as one, and their bond had only grown stronger through the struggle. As the healers worked, she glanced around the village. Many were in mourning, but others were beginning to smile, celebrating their victory over the Ravagers and Kiran's betrayal. "Come on, let's get you comfortable," Zara said, helping Jake to sit up more easily. She offered him her shoulder for support. "You deserve a break after everything." As they settled down near the central fire pit, Zara looked around. The village was coming together, sharing stories of bravery and loss. Families embraced, friends laughed despite the pain, and a sense of unity filled the air. The sound of laughter mingled with the smell of food cooking nearby, a reminder that life would continue. As night fell, a gathering began at the fire pit. Zara stood up, her heart pounding as she looked out at her people. They needed a leader now more than ever. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Everyone," she called, her voice ringing clear in the cool night air. "We have faced darkness, but we have emerged stronger. Kiran's betrayal was a shock, but it showed us that trust is precious. We must always protect it." The villagers nodded, some clapping their hands in agreement. Zara felt the warmth of their support. "Let us remember those we lost, for their bravery will inspire us to keep fighting for our future. Together, we can build a new alliance, one where Zorathians and humans stand side by side. She continued, glancing at Jake, who gave her an encouraging smile. Tonight, we celebrate not just our victory, but the bond we share. Let this be a new beginning for us all. Zora finished, raising her arms high. Cheers erupted from the crowd, and the sound filled the night sky. Music started, and soon people were dancing around the fire, celebrating their unity. Zara felt a swell of happiness. They were not just survivors. They were a family, united in their fight for a better future. As the night wore on, Zara found herself by Jake's side once more. "Thank you for standing with me," she said softly, her eyes shining with gratitude. Jake smiled, a twinkle of warmth in his gaze. "Thank you for believing in me, Zara. Together, we can face anything." In that moment, surrounded by laughter and love, Zara knew that they had truly begun a new chapter. Their worlds had collided in a way that would change them forever. They would work to rebuild, learn from the past, and create a future filled with hope, trust, and friendship. A new beginning. The days following the battle passed slowly, but they were filled with purpose. The village was busy with preparations for a new future. Zara watched as her people worked together, mending fences, rebuilding homes, and planting new crops. There was a spirit of determination in the air, a promise that they would rise stronger from the ashes of the past. Zara stood at the edge of the village, gazing at the horizon. She could see the mountains that surrounded them, tall and majestic. They reminded her of the challenges they had faced, but also of the strength that lay within her people. They had fought together, endured loss, and emerged united. Jake approached her, his bandages now neatly wrapped and healing well. "Hey, Zora," he said, joining her at the edge. "You're deep in thought. What's on your mind?" Zara turned to him, her eyes bright. "I was just thinking about everything we've been through. It feels like a dream, but it's real. We're really doing this, building a new future." Jake nodded, a smile spreading across his face. "Yes, and we're not alone. I've spoken with some of your villagers. They are excited about working together with us. They want to learn and share." Zara felt a rush of warmth. "That's amazing. Our cultures can teach us so much. I want everyone to understand each other better." Together, they walked back into the heart of the village, where preparations for a celebration were underway. The villagers were bustling around, hanging colorful decorations made from flowers and leaves. Laughter filled the air, and the aroma of delicious food wafted from the kitchens. As night fell, the village came alive with lights and music. The fire pit was lit, casting a warm glow over everyone. Zara stood on a small platform, ready to address the crowd. She felt a mix of nerves and excitement. "Everyone, thank you for coming together tonight," Zara began, her voice strong and clear. "We have faced darkness, but now we stand in the light. We have rebuilt our homes and our hearts. Today marks a new beginning for us all." Cheers erupted from the crowd, their faces glowing with hope and joy. Zara felt her heart swell. She continued, "This is not just a celebration of our victory. It is a celebration of unity. Together, we will create a future where Zorathians and humans stand side by side, sharing our cultures and our lives." Jake joined her on the platform, a proud look on his face. "I am honored to be here with you all. Together, we will learn from each other, grow together, and protect our new home. This is just the beginning of a beautiful journey." Zora looked at him, her heart racing. She knew they were building something special, something that would last. The crowd erupted in cheers again, their voices mixing with the music that filled the air. As the celebration continued, Zara and Jake joined in the dancing, moving to the rhythm of drums and laughter. Villagers shared stories, songs, and food from both cultures. The Zorathians showed Jake their traditional dances, while he taught them some steps from Earth. Throughout the night, Zara felt the magic of connection. She watched as her people interacted with the humans, smiling, laughing, and learning from one another. She could see that the barriers that once separated them were slowly fading away. As the stars twinkled above, Zara and Jake stepped away from the crowd for a moment, looking at the vast sky. "This is amazing," Jake said, his eyes shining with wonder. "I never imagined we could create something like this." Zara smiled, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. "We did this together, and we will continue to do it together." In that moment, Zara knew that they had not just survived a battle. They had forged a new alliance that would change the course of their history. They stood at the dawn of a new era, ready to face whatever came next. Together, they would write their own story, one of friendship, unity, and hope. This was their new beginning, and it was only the start of something incredible.